Hello and welcome again to the Writer Review. This is Eric Carruth Writer, and this week we're going to be taking a look back at the 2007 drama titled Georgia Rule. Now, Georgia Rule runs for 1 hour and 53 minutes long. It is directed by Gary Marshall. It is produced by James G. Robinson and Peter Guber. The script was written by Mark Andrus. The score was done by John Debney. The cinematography was done by Carl Winter Lindenlaub. And the editing was done by Bruce Green and Tina Timponi. And the stars of the movie are Lindsay Lohan, Jane Fonda, Felicity Huffman, Dermot Mulroney, Garrett Hedlund, and Carey Elwes. Oh my goodness. What a difference 3 years makes. Back in 2004, Lindsay Lohan was wickedly fresh as a daisy in the teenage drama Mean Girls. 3 years later, in Georgia Rule, I look at her and I ask myself, what the hell happened? I mean, yeah, she's still got some sort of physical attraction here and there, but compared to Mean Girls, she looks jaded and look like she is entering into a world of sorrow and lament. Could it be due to all the partying and all the exploitations that has been going around with her, which sort of seems to come across as being normal in the area of when you're a big star too soon in life, all of a sudden it just gets into their heads type of Hollywood cliche that seems to be true to life. I mean, when I look at this movie, I'm beginning to think, I'm convinced. I mean, it feels like she has aged quite drastically. At the time, Lindsay Lohan was 21 years old when this movie was released. But in Georgia Rule, she looks like she's aged to 31. I mean, here she is. She's supposed to be playing kind of a 19-year-old expecting to enroll in Vassar College. But here she kind of looks like she's going to be passed off to being in her 30s. She just does not seem convincing. And if you think that her looks were jaded, well, the movie Georgia Rule itself as equally disjointed and just as equally out of focus as Lindsay's physical presence. I mean, the thing about this movie is that it's kind of a sinister, out of touch film that focuses primarily on 3 generations of the Wilcox Randall family clan. We have the tough and disciplined Grandma Georgia Russell, played by Jane Fonda, the ever inebriated Mother Lily, played by Felicity Huffman, and the rebellious, sex craving daughter Rachel, played by Lindsay Lohan. The idea of an out of control daughter, it may have some levels of intrigue, but director Gary Marshall and screenwriter Mark Andrus turn a blind eye towards her incorrigible ways. It's a flat out exploitation to her somewhat draining reputation which occurred around this period of time. And for that, I gotta say to Gary Marshall and Mark Andrus, as much as I should not be disrespecting the deceased because yes, sadly, Gary Marshall passed away in 2016. But at the time when I saw this movie almost 10 years ago, I had to say to myself, I wish I could have just came right up to Mr. Marshall and tell him right to his face, shame. Shame on you guys. All right. Yes, I have to admit, Lindsay Lohan is not a saint, and I don't condone her for her for her dying reputation at the time. And if she ever does try to plan and means for a comeback, she's got a lot of picking up to do. She's got a lot of pieces to pick up before she ever becomes legitimate again. Hey, she's 31 years old. She still has lots of time left. But, around this time, her career was falling apart. Her reputation was falling apart. And she was falling apart at such a young age. And I just thought it was kind of tasteless and classless that Gary Marshall would sing to a low to do such a thing. I know it's too late for me to tell him that to his face because, he died in 2016. Yeah, everybody died in 2016. He was no exception. But still, I just didn't. I just felt right away very uncomfortable when watching this movie because of him doing that to her and her career and her reputation. Let her kill her own career. We don't need it rubbed in our faces, and we don't need it rubbed in her face either. This was a blatant jab at her. Let alone the fact Miss Lohan looks less like a teenager and more like one of those lounge singers in playing Broadway musicals in swanky karaoke bars. I mean, you should see some of the ways she dresses. I mean, she does seem to have a lot of selective clothing in store for her. Okay, maybe she doesn't have to dress like a Sunday school student all the time or like a nun, but you should see the way she dresses and the way she acts throughout the movie. It's just a mirror reflection of what she was like at the time. Maybe she has revived, maybe she has changed her ways. But here it was just plainly obvious that she wasn't just acting, she was just being herself for what she was at the time. And maybe she is still that way now, but a total fucking bitch. And here they leave no stone unturned. Maybe it might work in the Hollywood industry, but switch to reality for a second. But if the opening scene features a teenage daughter belittling, ostracizing, and verbally bullying her own mother, you're all programmed to hate this snotty little punk. Oh, that's right. Rachel is an angry late adolescent who's so undisciplined that her mother made her leave her precious home in San Francisco to spend some time at grandma's house in middle of nowhere Idaho, where she hopes grandma will set her straight, will teach her the meanings of right from wrong. Where's the responsibility, Mom? Or is something I like to call, or is it something I like to refer to as an urban renewal? Well, it just so happens that Grandma Georgia is a person who's fixated on routines. You have breakfast at 8 a.m. on the button, not 7:59, not 8:01, 8 o'clock. And you have lunch at 6 o'clock, not 5:59, not 6:01, 6 o'clock. Don't you can swear, but you can't take the Lord's name in vain. Or if you do, I hope you like your dessert, which consists of some soap in the mouth. So she kind of has this hoity toity household where she lives off of rules. Lots and lots of rules. And you must follow them, or if not, you're up shit's creek without a paddle. You come down for breakfast at 8 a.m. If you're there at 9 a.m., tough fucking luck. That's just who she is. She also seems to come across as being sort of unfriendly with her family, although she does take quite a liking to the neighborhood children. She never she gets gifts from her family members, but she never truly fully uh says thank you, please, or I love you. And Grandma Georgia is not the only unlikable character in this movie. All three members, all three generations of the female household in this movie are unlikable. And how the hell am I supposed to take sympathy for each one of them when we don't even, I don't even, when I was not even invested in any of the characters and I didn't even like any of them? If you really wanted me to care about any of these characters, we could have at least showed some signs of sympathy towards each and every one of the characters in this movie. I'm not saying that the male characters in this movie were any more likable, but they were a little more lenient. And no, I'm not being a meninist here. But since, they were, I mean, the male characters in this movie may have been a little lenient, but they were also quite underdeveloped, maybe except for probably Dermot Mulroney's character, who seems to be an eternally lamented veterinarian who has never gotten over the death of his wife and his son. But that was about maybe the only character in this movie who comes across with at least a little bit of sympathy, and maybe the only character who I probably would have liked to spend a little more time with. I couldn't really invest in Jane Fonda's character. I couldn't really invest too much in Felicity Huffman's character, even though, she kind of like tries her best to get out of the alcoholic stuff. But she just seems like she just gets lured back in. But the worst of the bunch is Lindsay Lohan's character, who I fucking couldn't stand. I mean, okay, does Grandma Georgia really need an incorrigible child placed at her doorstep? I mean, yeah, she's a woman of moral restriction with an obsessive compulsiveness for tight at the exact minute scheduling, even though she somewhat seems lenient towards the neighborhood children, which actually kind of makes most of the leading characters, especially the three principal female leads, hip hop, heap hop hypocrites, taken from King Ross from whatculture.com. I'm sorry, I know that's your catchphrase, but this movie clearly personifies hypocrites. But she still dwells back to the fact that her daughter's a drunk and her granddaughter is out of control and promiscuous. The purpose of this story is that in spite of all their shortcomings, they love each other. But the way they love each other is planned out in the cruelest of taste. The tone of this film is really, really jarring, and it left me wondering, are these people for real? The movie was made to be kind of a light drama with some touches of comedy for good measure. But I felt very little in tightness. There was nothing really lighthearted in this movie or anything that I could pass off as comical. A lot of the subject matter in this movie is pretty heavy handed. Where's the comedy? Where's the lightness? There was no lightness in this movie at all. So the marketing and the advertising is shamefully misleading. Again, I have to say my favorite quote: shame. The movie is actually pretty cynical in approach, and Marshall gives us the impression that his audience are just as mixed up as the characters on the screen. Ho ho, okay, so one supposed funny scene has Rachel making lustful passes with an overly religious Mormon by the name of Harlan Wilson, played by Garrett Hedlund, and then performing off camera oral sex. I mean, you gotta forget the scene uh, where Rachel and Harlan are on a canoe and she gives him permission to touch her hairy pie hole. And because he's a Mormon and because he was already in a relationship with somebody with a Mormon girl, he felt that it was the right thing to do to tell the truth to his girlfriend, which of course thanks to Rachel being such a bitch, he and his girlfriend eventually break up because he told the truth. I mean, that's just cold. I mean, isn't there any moral decency? At least, I'll give credit to Harlan. At least he stood up and told the truth to Lisa. I think that was the name of his girlfriend. I don't know. She was just a very, very small character. I mean, she was like singing some kind of hymns because, she's a goody goody schoolgirl Mormon student of some sort. And he was just, trying to tell her the truth that, he and Rachel were involved in some kind of oral sex, and of course that defies his religion. And of course, she dumps him, and of course, word goes around, and Rachel ends up becoming more like the pariah in Idaho. I mean, I bet you maybe back home in San Francisco she was Miss Popular. Here, nope. She gets constantly chastised. Oh, it gets better. There's the scene where she threatens these goody goody Mormon girls that if they ever stalk or assault or belittle her or Harlan again, she's gonna take each and every one of their boyfriends and she's gonna fuck them stupid. Huh. Yeah, right. Aren't we supposed to be taking sympathy for Rachel? In other words, be like her and you will be cool. But I have to ask you, Is she cool? Hmm? Not in the slightest. In fact, I find her and her dysfunctional family nothing more than hypocrites who talk the good talk but don't walk the good walk. In other words, they could preach to you, but they don't practice. Enough said? No. Here we have Rachel threatening these girls that she will get all raunchy on their other halves. And yet we get a revealing that Rachel's stepfather, Arnold, played by Carey Elwes, sexually molested her. Of course, this brings it to the attention of Lily, and Lily, who looked like she was off the bottle, eventually is now gone to full blown inebriate. And the only reason why she only just said that her stepfather molested her. But then Grandma Georgia told it to her daughter Lily. And of course, now Lily is back to her alcoholic ways again. And yeah, okay, I admit that Carey Elwes' character looks like a sleazy guy. You know, he's a big shot lawyer who rides a really cool but uber expensive car, and he's all Mr. Slick and all. But the thing of the matter that kind of irks me a little bit is, should I take sympathy for this guy or should I not take sympathy for this guy? I don't know. And it's also sort of very mixed and confusing as to whether or not he actually really ever did molest Rachel when she was 12, or if this is all just bullshit that's coming of out of Rachel's mouth. I mean, okay, it might be possible that he might come across as an antagonistic character here, but it's not 100% justified. I don't know whether or not he did or not, because it seems that Rachel always seems to turn the stories around. He molested her when she was 12. He did not. I lied to you. And then she keeps telling him the truth. Then she keeps saying he did, and then he didn't. He did, he didn't. Make up your fucking story here, folks. Could you get your story straightened out? I can't fully hate a person if this whole sexual molestation story is based off of lies, or if it did happen. I don't know, because we keep hearing the different sides of the story and it makes me so fucking confused. And the strange part. Now back to Lily being an inebriate. This is where it gets even more hypocritical. Grandma Georgia disallows alcoholism in her household. And yet, she's got shelves of booze to keep Lily amused, and she even goes out to a store to buy alcoholic liquor to Lily so she can lie around in her underwear getting stewed. I mean, this is a horrible family with horrible people, and it even sickens me. Worse is that, Jane Fonda, Felicity Huffman, and Lindsay Lohan are incredibly talented performers, and it makes it even hard to swallow. It's not that they're wasting away here every foundation this movie is. It's not that they're wasting away here, that every foundation of this movie is based off of lies. I mean, it tries to be truthful, but it fails at every attempt. And it just makes me sick to my stomach. The sexual abuse subplot is the hardest one to take into account because of the hypocrisy that comes all around. We get cringing jokes about oral sex, and you have Rachel flaunting around town, engaging in sexual activities with the town, but then we're supposed to feel sorry for her once the serious topic of sexual abuse comes around, and we're forced into thinking she's just a poor lost soul. Well, that's no excuse. You should always take control of your own actions. And if you ever do get sexually assaulted, it's good to tell the truth and not make up fibs or accusations just because you simply don't like a certain person. Maybe we are programmed to hate Carey Elwes' character Arnold, but I can't 100% fully despise the man because it's unknown as to whether or not he really actually committed sexual assault towards her. And it's not 100% justified. It wasn't really, really fully, it wasn't really fully revealed. And even when he did actually try to come out, it just didn't come out really well as I expected. And even if he did do it, I couldn't really care less. Because the characters in this movie are just so bad and unlikable. I couldn't care less if whether or not he was telling the truth. Because as far as I'm concerned, the characters in this movie can simply all go fuck themselves. I mean, we should just forget about all the heartbreak Rachel has because we don't approve of her stepfather who sexually abused her when she was 12. So we should just drop everything and take pity for her. Fair enough. Nobody deserves to go through that. I understand. But it's still not fully justified if whether or not if this whole sexual molestation story was the truth or not. Because in the end, I don't know. And I know I might sound cold, but because since the characters are so unlikable, I don't really give a flying fuck. So with all said and done, out of a scale of 1 to 10, I give Georgia Rule a 4. I just really can't recommend this movie at all. It's just so fucking bad. It's just so fucking frustrated. And although, you know, God rest your soul, Gary Marshall. I mean, you've had your share of hits and misses. But this movie was just not one of your better moments. So, and all is said and done, this ends my writer review for this week. Thank you all for listening in. If you wish to subscribe to my channel, please feel free to do so. If you wish to leave a comment, go right ahead. Just remember, be kind, be courteous, and please refrain from any rude comments, and I will be back again with another movie review. So until next time, this is Eric Corrupt Writer saying, keep watching those movies, and I'll see you around. Goodbye.